There we go. It is recording. So, guys, thank you for joining today. It's really great to have you all here. We're going to be talking about the importance of IADPs for you as athletes, and also if there's any parents there today as well. It's great to have you on board, and we'll go through a little bit about them, and hopefully it becomes a bit more clearer if it's not already clear to you, or if it is, it just helps you understand it a little bit more. So as we go through, is it gonna, there we go. So what we're gonna go through is we'll go through what an IDP is, why they're important, and getting the most out of them for you as an athlete, and how your parents or support network can help support you through your journey, and the types of goals that you might want to consider. And then there's a little bit of reflections and input from some of the wheelchair fencing athletes and how they go about using their IDPs, which might be really useful as a frame of reference for you. So that's kind of the framework of today's session. And please feel free to stop and ask any questions at any point. Shout out if you want to. I don't mind that at all. It is recorded though, so totally up to you whether you want to do that. We can ask questions at the end if not. So to begin with, what is an IDP? Most of you might already know, most of you might already use them. In case this is completely new to you, I know that there's athletes from all levels and stages in their journey. So an IADP is an individual athlete development plan, and they aim to be really personal to you. They're specific to you. They help track your progress and they help increase your fencing performance. But hopefully, they also increase your enjoyment in training and competing. It's not all about winning. It's also enjoying the process too. And they're a frame of reference that will help you do that and make your goals a little bit easier to digest and how you're going to get from A to B. So they help you guide yourself and be the best athlete you can be. And the way I like to look at them is great performance doesn't happen overnight and it doesn't happen by chance, but by planned incremental change. And IDPs help you plan that. So it's about having a plan, it's about making your training purposeful, and efficient use of time on task is the main concept of an IADP. A couple of quotes that I think really touch it really well is it's not just the will to win that matters, because everyone's got that, but it's the will to prepare to win that matters. It's the time that you put in, even outside training. It's like the iceberg analogy. People only see that really top peak. Nobody sees all the other effort you put in. Everyone might see you in the gym, but how are you preparing before you come to the gym? And how do you know what you're doing when you are in the gym and your time on task? Because if you fail to prepare, you're setting yourself up to prepare to fail. Okay, so that's the way I kind of look at it, and I hope that you guys can end up seeing that too and understand really the importance of why an IADP should be so integral. It shouldn't just be a tick box exercise, it really should be a part of your daily life, and checking in on it, it should be embedded in your training and really get on board with it. And it's not just a piece of paper that comes out around selection times or a piece of paper that is getting dusty, and when it comes out you view it as a real negative. They should be positive pieces, and they should be pieces that you can really connect with, and they should be a part of you and your journey through being an athlete. A great thing about an IADP is it helps balance. So you might view currently that your IDP is all about performance, it's all about selections, it's all about performing to your best, but it also enables you to balance your well-being. And it knows when you've trained so much, if you've got a daily plan, it can help balance your lifestyle, your happiness. It gives you a form of structure around your training so that you're able to balance your performance and your well-being. And ultimately, that should hopefully create a thriving environment for you. And obviously, we want you to be a thriving athlete. We want your journey to becoming champions in whatever aspect that looks like to be really enjoyable. Because why not enjoy the process? Hey, it takes a lot of work and hard work to be great and master your sport. So at least enjoy it and thrive at the same time of doing it. So, is this going to work? Yes. So this is just a quick little quiz. Just one question, totally anonymous. You can sign in with the code, and I will get also the QR code at which I can move once the majority of you have completed it. And just how do you feel about your IADP? And do you feel like it benefits you as an athlete currently? This is not a trick question at all, and you're not going to be tripped up by it. This is just an honest, do you use it and do you get much out of it? And it's totally fine if you don't, because hopefully by the end of it, you will. That's the aim, but it's nice to know kind of where we're all at. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to have a think about it and put an answer in. Don't feel like you have to put an answer in, but it would be great if you could. So I'll see if I can move this QR code out of the way. Nice. Give you a couple more minutes. Nice to see that a lot of you feel quite comfortable with your IADPs. That's great. Okay, well, I'll move on and we can continue with what we're going to talk about next. But it's really great to see that a lot of you are quite comfortable with them. And hopefully this presentation will just enhance how you use them currently. And for those that maybe don't feel as comfortable, it might make you feel a little bit more comfortable and encourage you to use it a little bit more or give you some hints and tips of how to get the most out of it. So, getting the most out of your IADP, I think there's three main ways in which you can do this. Being self-determined, so really being proactive with how you treat your IADP, like thinking and checking and challenging yourself and what do you want to achieve, aiming to have a bit of choice in it, that you need to believe what you are trying to achieve is worthwhile and is also what you want to achieve. If you are just being told all the time, this is what you need to work on and don't understand why, you're going to invest less into it. And when you come to training, you're going to be slightly less motivated. It's just quite a natural feeling. Another way is valuing the process. So really having small realistic goals and building up and having chunks and stepping stones to get to your goal and supporting your peers in that journey as well. Having a real positive environment will help build each other up and really give you a sense of competency in the goals that you're trying to achieve. And communicating, so being open with your coach, being open with your family, your friends, because they could be your most reliable support network. We might not all be in the elite space and have a lot of professional support staff, but your family and your friends and your networks might act like that, and your teammates as well. So being really open and having that connectedness and relatedness to the people around you who are supporting you on your journey and your coach who you'll work really closely with is really important for you to value the goals and actually believe that you can achieve them. So we'll go through a little of these steps in a little bit more detail. So being self-determined, what I really mean by that is you taking ownership in your IADP. So valuing what you want to achieve is important, and to achieve that and to feel like you value your goals, you really need to have a big part of making those goals. So collaborating with your coach, having conversations, even if it's understanding why their view is different to yours, sitting down and being able to have honest and open conversations around what your goals should be, what your trajectory is, and what you want to achieve is really important so you feel like you're a valued part of the process. And when you're doing that as well to get a bit of autonomy and valuing that choice, self-reflecting is a really important part of that. So by self-reflecting, you're actually being quite proactive. You're analysing your training, what's gone well, what's not gone well, and they can fuel conversations with your coaches about what goals need to be written down or what goals you want to try and achieve, or even if your IADP needs adapting. And having those conversations with open communication is really vital. And by you self-reflecting can help those conversations happen. So really owning your own development is great, and believing in your goals and having a greater investment in your accomplishment. And that will fuel a greater motivation to actually want to achieve those and use your IDP constantly. So moving on to the process, you need to value the process as well. So this idea of feeling competent in the goals that you're going to achieve comes from valuing that process. And there's a few steps through that to make you feel more able to achieve your goals, which will help create better motivation. So understanding your goals, why have they been put in place? And just like we spoke before, taking ownership and collaborating with your coach is a great way to do this. So understanding why they are and knowing the breakdown of your goals so that you know why you're doing this on your daily routine. So you're turning up to training. This is a goal because it's leading to this, this, and this. It's understanding that step-by-step process. So don't be afraid to ask why you're doing something in training. That's great. It's really great for you to be really inquisitive. When you go to training, it needs to be really purposeful, and that is stems from knowing why. If you know why you're doing something in training, it means that your time on task is going to be really purposeful and efficient, and that's going to enhance your focus and your motivation when you turn up to training. You're going to get straight into it. You're going to know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and ultimately, even if it's a task that you might not enjoy that much, you know the reason you're doing it is because it's going to help you achieve those long-term goals. So asking those why questions are really great. Another step is having that really positive and encouraging environment. So, having a great attitude towards training and helping other people around you achieve their goals. So, for an example, you could share your aims in a sparring session and help each other achieve what they're trying to achieve. Sharing those goals helps you create a great environment for everybody else, helps you achieve them, and helps you be more accountable to what you're trying to achieve. And hopefully, all those steps, when they come together and you achieve your goal, will give you a bit of confidence, even if it's just a small little skill that you've helped to master towards those big goals, gives you a bit of confidence and that gives you a feeling of competency. So, by having this great environment where you're asking the why questions, you're really focused in training and you've got really purposeful sessions, you're encouraging others around you and engaging with your coach will help to increase your sense of competency towards your own goals. And ultimately, that is what we're trying to achieve through an IADP, creating that plan so that you know how to get from A to B. That's quite, you probably already know that that is why you have an IADP. But when you really look at the steps of what it helps you do, it just helps that clarity and be a little bit more clear of why they're so important. And it's not always about they're only for winning, they're only for being successful. It's not about that. Some of these smaller steps are really great to celebrate those little wins. And if they're part of your IDP too, through your stepping stones, that helps you feel really competent in achieving the goals that are to come as well. So it's valuing the process is a really great way of getting a lot more out of your IADP and valuing it. Communication's huge. So I've got a really short video. Well, I say really short, it's a couple of minutes, which is from Piers and Glenn. So a couple of Piers is an athlete from the wheelchair fencing and Glenn's his coach to just understand their dynamic of how they attack the IADP and how they get the most out of it. So give this a listen and hopefully some of it will be relevant and you can resonate with.
Yeah, so I think the way we bring them to life and we work together is that we identify what it is that we need. It's very much a collaborative approach, i.e., for example, post games in Paris, we looked at what we really need to do for the next cycle. A lot of that was identified by Piers. So, for example, Piers, you want to talk about what the things that you looked at identify, and then we can continue.
Yeah, I think the real key thing is that collaborative approach. So yeah, I think we've got quite a big team of staff here, and so I say everyone's expert in their own individual field, and so it's really good to have that kind of real collaboration. So we've got Glenn as the fencing expert, we've got Jonathan as our gym expert, And likewise, we've got so many other staff, and so it's important that we work with each one. But I'd say as well, like, how can I also become the expert of myself, and kind of bring everyone together? And so I think the relationship works really well when you've got that sort of equality between everyone. So I come to the table with my thoughts about where I should go, how I should improve. Glenn comes up with his thoughts. We then sort of must negotiate, what we think, what direction to go. And so I think that kind of collaboration is really key to make sure we're going in the right direction.
It was really nice as well, is actually getting everyone's perspective on it as well, actually. So once again, actually, with the support staff that we have, and you may or may not be lucky to have the support staff, but everyone does have support staff in a way, be it your family or your parents or whatever it may be, or whatever your support network is, your home club. And actually, if everyone's on the same page, working towards the same goals, then that makes everything a lot easier. And it means we're really aligned on what we're looking to achieve. And so it might be something technical. If it's technical, then actually it's really important that, okay, the coach and the fencer are really, really aligned on what we're looking to do, how we're going to go about that, and actually who else we need involved in that. So we might need a technical, we might need a physical element to that. So therefore we get Joseph involved. We might need a performance analysis involved in that as well. So it's just basically getting everyone aligned on the same page to try to work towards the same goals, basically.
I think the key thing of that is all the individuality. I'd say, I think a lot of time people try and be like, this is a sort of textbook of how to be a good fencer or a good coach or a good program. And I think we have to have that individual approach. So, what works for me might not work for someone else. My sort of path, might be different to Dimitri or Ollie, one of the other guys. And so I think that's why it's important that the athlete has a real investment in what they think they should be doing. And also the coach as well, of like being able to sort of like, again, rather than follow like strict rules, that actually, you listen to the athlete. How does their disability affect them? In our case, how does, that even personality affect their fencing style? So I think definitely that individual approach is also a key thing.
Without a doubt. I think that's the whole point of, like, as I said, like an IDP is that it is very much independent. And I think actually, if you get everyone on the same page, like I said, like the coach has to understand the athlete has to understand the coach. And without that communication, that doesn't happen. Otherwise, I'm just telling you what to do, and it doesn't really work for you. So yeah, it's definitely a collaborative approach. And actually, with those IDPs, it's almost an accountability check as well, isn't it? So it's like, are we on the right path? Are we doing the right thing? Have we got the right people involved? And I think if we, the more preparation work we do in that front, the easier our journey is.
So they put that really nicely, and a really great representation of how an athlete can still take ownership of their IADP. They can still have choice, and they can still be able to have an input without being told by the coach what to do, but having that relationship that is really open and honest, where you can have free communication, really helps to build that IADP so that it is a piece of work that's invested in both parties. And that's really important, because your coach is the fencing expert. The athlete, you are the only one who knows yourself. You're the only one who's going to be able to know how training feels and what progress you feel you're making. And sharing that really helps contribute to your overall development and really helps make your IADP more specific to you. But also it can adapt your IADP if things aren't going to plan. Like, progress isn't linear. Like, things are going to change, and being open to that is really important. And having really great communication is such an integral part of your IADP. So your IADP, having great communication, really helps build connectedness, relatability, motivation. There's tons of words on that word map there. And they're all really important, because without feeling related and connected to the people around you, your motivation's going to dwindle, because you're not going to feel supported. So it's not just about them reaching out to you, it's also you reaching out to them, you building those relationships as much as they're building them. So having your coach and having a great open and honest relationship with them, but also your parents or whatever your support network looks like, whether that is physio and psychologist, your parents, your friends, your teammates, being open and honest is really important. And if you share your goals and talk openly about your goals to friends and family and teammates, it also gives you a bit of accountability and makes them real, but also helps you talk passionately about them. And that really helps ingrain a positive attitude towards them. So communication isn't something to be overlooked in terms of your IADP. It might look like a really important document that you can just talk about once a year, but it's not. It should be embedded and it should be ingrained throughout your training. And it is a part of your journey. And it's going to be something that's going to help you enjoy your journey and be more successful as an athlete. So to round up that little section, which was all a little bit around motivation, you ultimately want choice. So speak up to your coach, actively pursue conversations around how you felt training has gone, share your goals with them, and ask them questions as well around what you're doing in training. In terms of competency, knowing what your focus is, and also celebrating those wins, no matter how big or small they are, whether it is around a competition, whether it's around mastering a skill like blade work or your footwork or your timing, no matter how big or small they are, they should be celebrated because it's going to make your journey so much better and make you feel better about your goal achievement, which helps increase your confidence. And that's really important. So don't shy away from celebrating what you've achieved. Share it. And that leads nicely into being really connected and feeling related to friends, family, teammates, coach, your sport in general. Sharing your goals helps validate and give you accountability to them. But communicating as also to your support network of how they can support you is vital because they play an important role, whether that's your parents or some of your support personnel, if you've got professional ones, they can really help elevate your performance and understand your coach. They're going to try their best to understand you. So understand how they communicate as well and how you get the best out of your coach. Is it just by informal conversations when you're walking to and from the piste or after training, or is it great to have a sit down conversation and really hash it out? Figure out what works best for you both, and hopefully it should flourish. That is, fingers crossed, the aim. So another mentee, because if you noticed in some of those infographics, we talked about the process and enjoying the process. And throughout that, I wrote down self-reflection. So really integral part to all elements of the IADP and having ownership, having good communication, and actually feeling competent in what you're doing is required. And you need to be able to self-reflect in order to achieve that. So we'll talk a little bit about it, but for now, you can sign in and have a go at this question as a QR code if that's what you prefer. But what types of self-reflection do you use, if any? If you don't, that's totally fine. And do you have any struggles with it? If we know about that, we can then have a little bit of a conversation and hopefully get to the bottom of any problems. And then I can also share some thoughts around how you might get better use out of self-reflection if you're struggling to do it or it feels a bit daunting. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to just answer that question. Again, it's totally anonymous. Nobody's going to know who said what. And if you don't want to answer, that is also okay, but it would really help just to have a bit of conversation around this topic because it'll help you as well in the long run. So I'll give you a couple of minutes. If there are any struggles that you want to share, then hopefully we can help support how you can overcome those as well. We might be able to share some great ideas. It looks like nobody wants to share, which is totally fine. So I'll talk around it for a little bit then. So I'll move on. So these are just a few ideas. And I think a lot of athletes, when they think of self-reflection, they just think of reflective diaries and having to sit down and it be a bit of a laborious job. But it doesn't have to look like that. And I think what's really nice about self-reflection is you really can personalize it. So your IADP might have a very specific framework, and you're working off a framework that a lot of other people will also be using, but your self-reflection is your chance to really make it personal. So a reflective diary might work really well for you, but if it doesn't, there's a few other options. So voice notes, some athletes might sit down at the side of the piece and just do a quick voice note. It could literally be 10, 20 seconds. What went well, what didn't go well. And then you can bank those. You might be a more visual person, so having graphics or pictures or drawings. A really unusual one that I actually did hear of from an athlete was hieroglyphics. I've never heard of that one before, but it just goes to show that you really can make it personal to you, and no one else is going to be able to understand, read, or know what those hieroglyphics mean, but you do. So it makes it really personal to you. Not saying that you all need to go out there and now learn hieroglyphics, you totally don't. But the point I'm trying to make is it can be really personal and it can be something that is close to you of how you work. Like understand yourself and what works best for you is really important because you can put your own touch on it. You could film your sessions and then annotate them if that's what you like doing. You could have post-it notes so that it's nice and colourful, and you could write a couple of bullet points. You know, they don't have to be really extensive. Some people like a really detailed reflection, and some people work off a little bit more simple and just some points to pick up for next time. You could stick those post-it notes in a diary if you want. You could stick them on a wall, however you like to put them is totally up to you. Or if verbal reflection is great, if you want to sit at the side of the piece with teammates, your coach, and ask for some feedback, that's fine. You could make jot a few notes down after that, or you could share your feedback with them and verbally reflect because that's still beneficial. You're still critically thinking about how training has gone, and that will still help fuel training in the future. So the idea is just do what works for you, but don't dismiss self-reflection. Try and find something that is really useful for you and effective, because then when you come to your training session, you will have already had a thought process of what went well, what didn't. It'll help you have those conversations with your coaches and really build goals and an IDP that's going to be really effective in you achieving success in fencing. And that's a really big aim that we want to achieve, but also help you enjoy the process. You know, if you enjoy your reflection, that's that's a huge part of it. Okay, so starting from where we left off, um, moving into how parents can celebrate. So celebration is really important. It helps athletes to feel like they're achieving things, whether they're big or small, and it really helps them feel competent at whatever they're doing and whatever their goals are. It helps to that sense of competency and the feeling that they are able to achieve what they're setting out to achieve. So celebration doesn't have to be saved for big wins and competitions that go well. They can be saved for little things. You know, if they're mastering a skill in training, or if they've gone to a competition and they've practiced using a skill there and it was an experience competition, but that skill's gone really well. It's really worth celebrating. Or if they've been really consistent in training, or they've had a really good week that they've been really motivated at, and they've hit everything else that they need to do, whether that's their physio, nutrition, their sleep's going well, they're eating well, the training's going well. All those things should be celebrated because they're all important. And without having all those things coming together, the athlete's not having the holistic support. So it's really important that the little things are celebrated just as much as the big things, and that the athletes really do feel like the effort they're putting in is being valued. So celebration's really important, but as a parent, you can also help facilitate critical thinking. So what has the athlete done in training? Ask them to explain why they're doing it and what's the importance of it. Pick their minds. Not only does it help you as a parent understand what's going on, but it really helps them as an athlete digest why they're doing things. And it really helps them to relate why they're doing things in training back to their development plans and their goals. So by you asking those questions isn't just for your own benefit. It's great that you also understand and are on board with what's going on, but it really consolidates what the athlete's doing in training and how that fits into the bigger picture and their structure and their season and the other competitions. So facilitating critical thinking, which is very similar, taking an interest, having those conversations with athletes are really important. And also, as a parent, educating yourself. So, what resources are out there that will help you be better at supporting your athletes? So, could you understand nutrition a little bit more or understand sleep hygiene a bit better? Do some anti-doping courses and also understanding healthy habits that athletes can do and how can you optimize travel? There's a whole world out there that the athlete has to navigate. So how can you make that a little bit easier is probably my biggest tip as a parent, especially with their development plans and kind of what they're going through. And you'll know your child the best and you know really what they're struggling with. If they do struggle with nutrition, can you go and do a bit of research and education yourself so that takes the load off them and you can have those conversations with them as well? Or have they got a nutritionist? Can you learn a bit from them what the expectations are and what really the athlete needs to start implementing? So really think about how your role as a parent and your role as a support system can be gained and be enhanced through what you can find out and what resources that you can access. So if we look at specific goals then and what goals are included in an individual athlete development plan, I don't know if any of you have used these specific goals in the past. You probably have come across at least one of them, but what's really a really good way is to split them into performance goals and process goals. So your performance goal is defined by it's winning and outperforming others. It's quite simple. So a performance goal is just about the result. It's that outcome. It's that the big beating specific people. It's probably what most people would regard as a success or a competition, that's the type of goal that you want when you go into competition. You want to win. And then your process goals are there because they are the stepping stones. So they're the skill improvement and they're gained by learning, improving, and mastering skills. So they could be, an example is mastering blade work, mastering specific footwork, S&C to master lunging. I know there's a lot of lunging in fencing, improving mobility to protect against injury. So I'd look at those as how. They're how you get to those performance goals. And the performance goals are the big, what do you want to achieve this season? But it's really important to know that they're balanced. You need a balance between these two. Okay, so that they're going to help you gain success if you value both of these goals. They're both equally as important. And in fact, you'll probably spend more time working on your process goals because your process goals are enablers to get to those performance goals. So the hard work all goes into those process goals, and then hopefully they help you achieve your performance goals. But your performance goals, knowing what you want to achieve in competition, or if there's targeted competitions that are really important, they can help form your process goals. So they're really important to understand both. Now, we will all have a natural tendency to lean towards one side or the other. I don't know if many people have been asked, do you prefer performing or training more? And that is a real thing. Some people really do live for the thrill of competing and the adrenaline. And that's what really drives them as an athlete. They live for the performance, they live for competing. Some people really love the intricacy of training and mastering things and improving. And it doesn't matter either way, you're not judged on what you actually enjoy the most, but it's really important that whichever way you enjoy or which one you tend to lean to more than the other, as long as you value both and you put effort into both, that is the main take home, really. A process goal is really, really important for you to be able to achieve your performance goals. So if you're very performance driven and you're in sport because you really enjoy competing, you get a thrill out of it, that's what you really love. If you focus on that too much, you're going to risk feeling incompetent if you don't achieve what you set out to. Whereas if you incorporate your process goals alongside that, you're going to view things slightly differently, where we're aiming to look that even if a competition doesn't go well, that you've got the mindset to be able to critically think why it's not gone well and use it as a learning experience rather than comparing it to I can't do this, or I'm incompetent, I should be able to do this. So valuing the process and really putting time and effort into increasing skill improvement is vital to have a successful individual athlete development plan. So we'll look into each one a little bit more. So we've spoken already quite a lot over them, but the importance of a performance goal is they help structure a season. You know when that you're going to peak. So you know when those important competitions are in the year, and that is when your performance really matters. So you know it might be a ranking, you need a certain ranking, you need to beat certain opponents, you might need to be the overall winner of the competition. Whatever that goal is, whatever that performance goal is, they're the big ones that there's probably more pressure on to perform well and to deliver. So they give you structure to your season. It gives a very broad view of what your season looks like, but it's an external drive. Okay, so an external drive basically means that you've got a reward. So if you do well, you win the competition. That's an external drive, external form of motivation, but it's still a form of motivation. So having performance goals gives you a form of motivation. It structures your season. You know when you're peaking, and it gives you that external sense of motivation, which is important then when we look at process goals. So process goals give you purpose to training. So we've just spoke about performance goals giving you structure, so you know when you're peaking, but process goals are the stepping stones, and you know that when you turn up to training, you're doing these really small steps to be able to get to that big performance goal. So we look at them as really efficient use of your time. You're going to go into training and you're going, I'm doing this in training today because it's working towards this bigger performance goal. So you've got real purpose use when you go into that training setting. They're very specific. Some of you might share similar performance goals in terms of you need to rank certain places to be able to qualify for things. So there's a few that might have the same performance goals, but how you get to those performance goals will be very different. And that's where your individuality and the differentiation comes in. Process goals should be very specific to you. And that's why it's really important for you as the athlete to own that, really own your development plan and understand what you want to gain out of it. What do you think you need to do to be able to get your performance goal? Have that collaboration with your coach so that when you make these process goals, they're really personal. And that in turn instills a really internal drive because it's personal to you, it's internalized. You've got a specific attachment to that goal, and you've got a desire to want to achieve that. Okay, there's nothing external out there. You're not going to get a gold star for doing it, but what you do get is that satisfaction that you take those steps in the right order to be able to get to where you need to be, and that is a form of motivation. So we've got a performance goal which sets out structure, and it gives you a very external form of motivation. And then you've got your process goals, which are those stepping stones, the smaller goals that give you purposeful training, makes your training really deliberate, but they're really personal to you. And that gives you a really sustained form of motivation to want to continue to succeed because it can be hard being an athlete. It's not straightforward. There's no linear progression. So you need to really want to achieve each step of the process. So how you get there is really important, and time on task. So when we look over all of this, consistency is really key. And we might say, well, how do we stay consistent? And this relates back to everything that you do on a daily basis. So reflective diaries are a great way to reflect on training. You can instill a sense of choice. It's very autonomous. You're writing down what you think, and they can start to outline some conversations that you have and facilitate conversations that you have with your coach. You've wrote reflections down and then you can go and speak to them about it. They're always logged, so you can see your improvements as you go. So it's going to help with your competency. And then learn the why. So if you've got a specific training programmed, why are you doing that? Why is that training session important in terms of your goals? And have those conversations with your coaches, because it will really help you understand the importance of them. It'll help you understand what you need to do. And it will also help you really feel connected to your IADP. And that comes on then to relatedness as well. If you're sharing your goals with other people, whether that's teammates, coaches, parents, it gives you accountability, but it helps you consolidate what you're doing and helps you own them. Okay. And if athletes are sharing them back to you, you've got a real sense of community and you're all in this together. You know, you're on that long journey of being the best that you can all be together. And then be proactive. Go out there, research. You want to learn. You want to turn up motivated. You know, you want to come to every training session in the best mindset. We all have bad days, but if you're proactive in learning why you're doing things and doing your reflective diaries and really engaging with your development plan, you're going to get the most out of it. Being honest with your coach. So that helps you build your relationship with your coach, helps you have a sense of relatedness to your coach as well, because they're learning about you. And then with their response, you're learning about them. So it's really building that coach-athlete relationship, and also being honest really helps to get the most out of your training, because you're going to be more efficient. Okay. Yeah. Your coach is going to know quicker if you're more honest with how you're feeling. You are the only true person who knows how training is actually physically feeling. So no one can tell your coach that information, and that's really important. So being honest is really, really, really great skill to have in terms of being consistent with training and making progress. And don't be afraid of challenge. Goals are going to be challenging. But if you strive to succeed and you want to push yourself and you want to progress, having a sense of challenge is really important, and it will help build your competency, because even small elements of challenge, you succeed in completing them and you overcome those small elements of challenge, and all of a sudden you feel like you're more competent, and it's a building block to be able to achieve the bigger goals. So don't be afraid and don't shy away of things that might just be hard work, you know, really get into the mindset of trying to navigate these challenging areas. And then, as we've spoken about before, in terms of autonomy, constantly strive to learn, be proactive, reflective diaries, all of those are really, really important for you having a sense of choice in your IADP. Constantly learning really helps you to understand why you're doing something. So you ask your coaches loads of questions, but also go and ask other athletes, why are they doing certain things? Or go and research, go on Google Scholar and find some research papers if that interests you. Some people might not, or watch YouTube videos. There's plenty of videos out there if they're on the correct topic, but go and find resources that you can access to learn more. Or if you've got certain support networks like your nutritionist, your psychologist, your physio, you know, ask them more questions and understand things, and learn how you can become a better athlete. And a well-rounded athlete is really important. So this video from Piers from the wheelchair fencing program is going to talk a bit about how he brings his to life and how he stays really consistent with his training and how he incorporates his IADP specifically into sparring sessions. So we'll take a quick look at this.
I think the key thing with sparring sessions is to see it as it's just a method of training. I think some people can see it as, you know, the more sparring you do, the better you get. But I'd say the best way to perform is you only want to win one competition every 4 years, and that's the Olympics or Paralympics. And, you know, World Cups, you can use them as training, and down to the smallest detail of a sparring session, that's nothing but training. And so within that, rather than try to win the match, you can kind of use it as like a realistic way of practicing your goal. So for me, going into a session, I've got my sort of broader goals for the sort of the block, the week, the day, even, and then down to each session. So for me, I know, okay, I've got this sparring session scheduled this afternoon. I know what I'm kind of working on personally. And so for this session, it's a great chance to sort of work on that goal. So for me, the key thing is going into the sparring session with key goals of what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. So for example, like, rather than just picking get better at a cart parry, you need to also think about how can I really make that happen. So what kind of preparations and invitations can I do to make sure that I really helps me get a realistic cart parry. And then, so the key thing is, yeah, sort of really plan it out, think about how you can sort of manipulate the session to get to help with that goal. And then I'd say the number one important thing is having a training diary for that. So rather than just sort of fence and hope you'll remember it or hope you get better, you're only going to really do well in the sport if you're a real academic of the sport. And I think a key thing of that is really make as many notes as you can. One thing they say is like actually just the method of writing down actually helps you remember it better. So that even just writing it down and never seeing it again, that's a benefit. But then the key thing is how can you then review it, look over it again. So next time you're doing a session on cart parries, you can then open your book. Cool. Here's my key reminders. This is what helped. This is what worked. This is what didn't work. This session actually, this is what worked or didn't. And then you're not wasting time by repeating the same mistakes over and over again. So for me, yeah, that kind of like plan beforehand and constant review is like a common theme, really. So that's me.
So some key takeaways there from Piers was that the purposeful training, knowing what you're doing in training and how that relates to your goals. And he used a great example there in a sparring session, being able to communicate with your sparring partner what you're trying to achieve in that session and understanding what they're trying to achieve in the session as well can really help you both navigate and try and help each other achieve that, set up that sparring session so that it's tailored for them to work on that specific skill, can really help both of you out, and taking accountability for your training sessions, knowing what you're going in to do and what you're setting out to achieve. And then you can communicate that well. But also, he mentioned about the reflective diaries. I know not a reflective diary might not work for everybody, but that idea of self-reflection is really important. So finding how you reflect best is really important to your session, and that will help you have those conversations with your coach. It might help you improve, but also help you to understand where you've been and where you're going. So Piers summed that up really nicely, and I hope that is relatable to some of you and helps you understand it a little bit more. So a brief overview now. We've spoken about quite a few areas that the IADP is useful and helpful and how to get the most out of it. But this diagram sums it up really nicely, everything that we've spoken about. So to quickly go over everything and just sum it all up, your IADP is a great way to structure your season. It allows you to target certain competitions, and it allows you to target certain competitions for performance, so you know which ones matter in terms of performance and outcome, but also it allows you to understand where you can practice those skills in that pressured competition environment. And that in turn helps you have more clarity, more focus, efficiency, and consistency with your training, because you have got a greater idea and understanding of what you're doing and when you're doing it. An IDP helps you to have the right amount of challenge. So you're setting goals out yourself. You've got an element of choice in there. You've got your performance and process goals, which make it very clear. And with you setting them and you having that choice and autonomy in setting them, hopefully they'll be very personal to you. They'll hopefully be realistic. You'll have reflected on previous performances and you'll know what you're focusing on, and they'll be specific. So by having those elements, you're going to feel autonomous, and you're also hopefully going to feel competent because they're going to be realistic goals and achievable goals. What comes with challenge is support, and IADP can help facilitate good relationships. They're a point of conversation that you can have with your coach. They can facilitate good communication. You can fill out certain elements of your IADP and then you can take that to your coach and that can start that conversation. So it helps you have a better understanding of yourself, but it also helps you as the athlete have a better understanding of what your coach sees as well and how you can learn from them. And that should help you feel better as a person and elevate your well-being. Having that correct amount of challenge and support and understanding the structure of your season should help you feel happier in what you're doing in your training. You've got deliberate training, you know what you're doing. You should feel happier when you turn up. You should have a sense of accomplishment because we're celebrating those small wins every step of the way. You should feel as though you're making some sort of progress. And you've got a real deep understanding of yourself and what you feel like you need and what your coach needs from you as well, because you're building that relationship. And when all those things come together, you hopefully will see an increase in performance. You'll have more success, and that will be helped through you having greater understanding of your direction, clarity, and purpose as an athlete in training. And we've spoken a lot around the motivational underpinnings of how all of those areas can be enhanced through autonomy, competency, and relatedness. So that diagram really does sum up all the different areas in which an IADP can help you thrive as an athlete and help you achieve your goals. And it also highlights that it's really important, an IADP impacts all of these areas that as an athlete are super important. So really engaging with your IADP is really important to your progress as an athlete and your longevity in the sport as well. So that sums up the presentation today. So thank you very much for listening and engaging with that. I have added some recommended reading and resources if you want to read further into any of the topics. So very much about goal setting and the types of goals, so achievement goals, but also into the autonomy, relatedness, and competency element of motivation. They're your basic psychological needs. So there's some resources there for you to understand those areas a little bit more. And if you want to read specifically anything that I've used to create this presentation and to fuel my understanding and creation of what I've spoken about, then all my references are also there on the end too. And these slides will be made available online so that you can access some of these links too. But other than that, thank you very much for listening and engaging with it. And yeah, thank you.